August 1945. Throughout the Pacific region, on bases ranging from Saipan and Tinian to Guam and Okinawa, hundreds of Boeing B-29 Superfortress bombers line up in orderly formations beneath the bright sunlight. These are not discarded remnants of a vanquished foe, but the triumphant tools of the United States Army Air Forces, the planes that delivered atomic strikes and conducted massive firebombing campaigns to compel Japan's capitulation. Yet in the ensuing months, American defense strategists confront an unexpected dilemma: how to handle nearly 4,000 of the most sophisticated and costly bombers ever produced now that the conflict they were created for has abruptly concluded. The B-29 stood as the most ambitious aviation initiative in history, with development and production expenses reaching $3 billion, surpassing even the Manhattan Project. Every unit featured innovative pressurized crew compartments, remotely operated defensive guns, and the capacity to reach targets over 3,000 miles distant while hauling up to 20,000 pounds of bombs. As summer gives way to fall in 1945, the WWII States grapples with an extraordinary situation, overseeing a strategic bomber force exceeding the total air strength of many countries. These machines are far too precious to discard casually, but their sheer quantity and high operational costs prove unsustainable in peacetime. The post-war landscape for American leaders in late 1945 grows increasingly intricate. Of the roughly 3,970 B-29s manufactured, around 2,800 are still airworthy when Japan capitulates. They are dispersed across dozens of bases in the Pacific and the U.S. mainland. At Northfield on Tinian, for instance, over 200 B-29s from various composite wings await sorties that will never launch. Guam accommodates hundreds more, with additional aircraft on Saipan and other sites. Stateside, facilities in locations like Omaha, Birmingham, and Marietta House, numerous planes in partial assembly or upgrade phases. The immediate supply and support burdens prove overwhelming. Each superfortress demands ongoing servicing, especially its 4 Wright R-3350 engines, infamous for reliability issues like overheating. Sustaining the entire armada drains the Army Air Force's budget by millions each month, an expenditure incompatible with reduced peacetime funding. Still, the B-29 offers unmatched performance, remaining the only bomber equipped to deliver atomic ordnance and the sole type able to penetrate deep into potential adversary territory if Cold War frictions intensify. Discussions in Washington soon focus on sharply curtailing the fleet while preserving sufficient numbers to uphold strategic deterrence and emerging nuclear capabilities. Cuts commence promptly, overseen by the Air Technical Service Command. Shortly after surrender, efforts launch to ferry B-29s back from overseas bases to America. From late 1945 into 1946, over 1,800 superfortresses complete the transoceanic journey, staging through islands en route to mainland fields in California. Upon arrival, technicians perform thorough evaluations. Planes with low hours and modern upgrades gain preference for continued duty. By 1946, several hundred such aircraft join the newly established Strategic Air Command. The majority, however, enter storage at desert sites in Arizona, Texas, and elsewhere, preserved for potential future mobilization. Even preserved planes demand upkeep, and by the late 1940s, emerging technologies like the B-36 with global reach and the jet-powered B-47 outpace the piston-engine B-29. The focus turns to further downsizing as the type gradually loses relevance. The Korean War's eruption in 1950 revives the B-29's role dramatically. At the conflict's start, hundreds remain active or in reserve. Rapid reactivation occurs, with units deploying to bases in Okinawa and Japan. These veterans of Pacific campaigns now conduct strikes against North Korean targets, completing thousands of missions and releasing vast tonnage of explosives. Korea, however, highlights the bomber's limitations against modern threats. Encounters with MiG-15 jets prove devastating in daylight, prompting a switch to nocturnal operations where fighters are less dominant. The war prolongs the B-29's career, but underscores its vulnerabilities amid advancing aviation. Combat ceases with the 1953 armistice, accelerating phase-out as jet-era bombers and nuclear delivery evolve. Final frontline retirements occur in the mid-1950s. Britain's brief but notable use of the type, via Lend-Lease transfers in the early 1950s, fills a temporary gap in heavy bomber strength. Designated Washington in RAF service, around 88 aircraft, equip multiple squadrons for training and potential nuclear roles until replaced by indigenous V-bombers. Most are later returned to US control and scrapped. The Soviet path to B-29 technology unfolds covertly. Several damaged American bombers force land in Soviet territory during 1944-1945 raids. Rather than repatriate them, authorities direct full replication under Tupolev's guidance. Engineers meticulously copy components, adapting to local materials and standards. The resulting Tu-4 first flies in 1947, with production reaching over 800 units by the early 1950s. It bolsters Soviet long-range forces until succeeded by newer designs, marking a pivotal early Cold War technological acquisition. Fleet reduction intensifies in the 1950s as jets dominate. Last combat squadrons retire by mid-decade, with specialized versions lingering longer in reconnaissance or support duties. Massive scrapping programs at desert bases process thousands, yielding scrap value far below original costs. A handful escape destruction through civilian adaptations, including airliner derivatives like the Stratocruiser, though most prove impractical. Long-term survivors today number in the dozens, mostly static museum exhibits. Iconic examples include the Enola Gay at the Smithsonian's Udvar-Hazy Center and Boxcar at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. Only two remain flyable: Efifi, operated by the Commemorative Air Force, and Doc, restored through dedicated efforts. The B-29's enduring influence spans pressurized cabins becoming standard, remote armament concepts informing future systems, and production methods shaping large-scale manufacturing. It defined early nuclear deterrence postures and accelerated Soviet advancements. From pinnacle of wartime power in 1945 to near-total disappearance within years, the superfortress exemplifies the swift pace of military innovation. Its innovations living on in subsequent generations of aircraft and strategy.